Good morning. Wow. My name is Jonathan Swinsburg, and I'm a living, breathing example of the importance of adult education. I must admit I have a lot of anxiety, and standing up in front of this many people, it's a really big job. But having the confidence to overcome that anxiety is one of the main benefits that adult education has provided for me. Another time throughout my life I've experienced anxiety is putting in applications or looking for a job. When you fill out a job application, after you give them your basic information like your name and phone number, before they even get to your work history, the first thing they want to know is what is your education history? And I would always pause in terror and look at that little box that said last grade completed, because I'd have to put in that little box that my last grade completed was the 8th grade. This lack of confidence and anxiety would carry over to the interview process and cause me to miss out on a lot of opportunities. Approximately 40 million American adults do not have a diploma or GED. And I believe lack of this credential has caused me a lot of problems throughout my life. One such example was I was working for a company for about 10 years when my boss left to take a position somewhere else. They brought a new person in who had no experience in the industry. And as I was training this person to be my boss, I thought, why did they give them the job and not me? And the answer was quite simple. They had an education and I didn't. And this got me thinking about going back to school. I'd even contacted a GED Learning Center and talked to somebody who was really encouraging and told me how they would be flexible to my schedule and kind of tore away all the excuses I had. But I still never followed up with it. And as the days went by, the desire to go back to school just kind of faded into the background of going to work every day and providing for my family. Then one day in 2014, that daily grind came to a screeching halt when I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I had surgery to remove a tumor, followed by aggressive chemotherapy and radiation treatments. The treatments that were there to kill the cancer about killed me in the process, and I ended up in the hospital for over a month for failure to thrive. At my worst point in the hospital, I had taken my last chemo treatment and had about 10 radiation treatments left, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I thought about my wife and my 4 sons and all the reasons I had to live, and just none of it just seemed enough. The treatments were just so bad. I just wanted to give up. And I prayed for a second chance, and I vowed if I got that second chance, I would never take anything for granted again. My prayers were answered as my cancer went into remission. And I knew that I had to make the most out of my second chance. So the first thing I did was went and signed up for GED classes. At first, I found it to be really, really hard because I hadn't been to school in over 20 years. But my adult education instructor showed me a simple method of just reading, practicing, reviewing, and then repeat any parts that you need. A really simple recipe where you could just kind of study for anything. And I went through and passed my first test with no problems. And as I was studying for the second portion, I had a lot of anxiety. And I talked to my teacher about it, and she said, the reason you probably have so much anxiety is because you need to practice. So just practice more to be prepared. And she was right. So I did a lot of practicing. It was a lot. And one day I was taking a practice test, or what I thought was a practice test, but it was an assessment. So it started asking me questions like, did I know how to use a screwdriver, and did I like math and stuff like that? And so at the end of it, it kind of told me what kind of careers that I would be good at. And it said things like aeronautical engineer and IT programmer. And I was like, looked at the teacher, I'm like, I don't think this is right. And she's like, well, that's what it says, right? And so I still had my doubts, but, her belief in me really gave me a boost of confidence. And so I went in and I passed that next section, and then I passed the last section, and I passed my GED with honors. I received the highest score in Athens Technical Adult Education Program that year. Thank you. In the summer of 2016, I enrolled in Athens Technical College's Electrical Systems Technology program. And I used the same study skills that my teachers showed me and applied it to that program, and I had really great success. I had a 4.0 GPA going into my first semester, and at the beginning of the fall semester, I got nominated by my electrical instructor for GOAL. So GOAL is Georgia's Occupational Award of Leadership, basically the Student of the Year for the Technical College System of Georgia. Well, thank you. Well, I got nominated, but I didn't make it as a finalist or even to the final round, but I met a bunch of amazing people and thought it was a really big deal to be nominated because most of the people were in their second year of their program and stuff, and I'd only been going there a few months. At around the same time, I also got nominated by my adult education instructor for EAGLE. EAGLE stands for Exceptional Adult Georgian in Literacy Education. So it's basically a word for the top adult education student in the technical college system. Thank you. And I made it as a college finalist, and then went on as the college winner to a state conference, very similar to what you have here, not quite as big, but it's where everybody gets together from adult education and all the other winners from all the other colleges. They called us Eagle delegates, and we had these little breakout sessions and stuff, and it was just really, really the most amazing experience I'd ever had in my life, just listening to all these different people's stories and realizing that I'm not the only one that's been affected by adult education, how much that these people's lives were transformed. And to my surprise, I was picked as the state winner. Thank you. I received a commendation from the governor and resolutions from the Georgia Senate and the Georgia House of Representatives. And when I went back into my program, I was just on fire. I started doubling down on my classes. I took the max amount of classes I could take in a semester, even having to get special permission sometimes to take extra classes. And I also began working as a federal work-study lab assistant. So my job was just to kind of clean up the lab and help the instructor out, make copies and that type of thing. But I took the job a little extra seriously, and I started dressing really nice every day, helping the students do the labs. And a lot of times I would be mistaken for a teacher and have to tell somebody, no, I just make minimum wage, I'm not a teacher. But, it was a really great experience. And I finished up my electrical systems degree with a 4.0 GPA as a presidential scholar. Thank you. And I knew I had to keep going with it, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but at the suggestion by one of my advisors, I started taking general education classes to apply to a bachelor's program as a transfer student. And so I was taking those classes and working as a lab assistant, and one night I finished my shift in the lab and was sitting at the table doing my homework, and it was the first day of a mini-mester, and the electrical night teacher came in, kind of had a falling out with the program chair, and quit on the first day of the semester. And my instructor says he left that he was posting the job tomorrow and that I needed to apply for it. And I'm like, me? I don't know I'm not a teacher, And he said, well, the minimum requirement is electrical systems diploma, and you have an associate degree, which is a preferred requirement, and you have work experience, and I think you can get the job. So I did get the job, and I started teaching part-time, and I finished my transfer classes. Now, I have to admit, the 4.0 GPA went out the window with my transfer classes. I thought I was good at math till I met calculus. That pre-calc got me. But I still had a pretty good application nonetheless. And so I started to look at different schools and stuff I could apply to. And I realized that every time you applied to a school, you had to pay an application fee. And so I didn't have a lot of money, so I was like, well, I'll just do them one at a time and then, wait till I get rejected or whatever and then go to another one. And so I recently had read about a program at the University of Georgia. They had just started adding like electrical engineering there, and they had this program for like electrical engineering and German. And it sounded really interesting. And so I thought about it. I said, well, I'll sign up here first, and then when I get rejected, I'll probably go to Georgia Southern and get a degree in construction management or something. So I put in my application, but it wasn't in time enough to start in the fall because of the date, and so I wouldn't be able to start until the spring if I did get accepted. And so I didn't really have anything to do, so I was kind of lost. I've been doing these classes and so many classes for so long, and I wanted to keep it going. So to fill the gap, I picked up some extra part-time teaching in industrial systems technology, which is like a related field to electrical systems. And as I was working part-time in that department, a full-time position came open for the program chair of industrial systems technology, and I applied for it. And I went to the second interview, and on my way home from the interview, I got a telephone call that said I had got the job. Thank you. I was so excited. This was a job with benefits, health insurance, retirement. I had never had any kind of job like this. This is what I went back to school for. That same day, I got home and I opened my email. And I opened up the screen, and there was these fireworks. They explode everywhere. It's like, congratulations, you have got into the University of Georgia. Thank you. And I was so overwhelmed. I was so happy. I was like, this is unbelievable. And then I thought about the phone call I had just got. And I just became overwhelmed because I didn't know what to do, and I started crying. And my wife asked me, she said, why are you crying? Are you crying because you're happy? I'm like, no, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got this job, and I got into UGA, and I don't know which one to pick. And she says, you're going to do both.
So good.
And I'm like, both? That's crazy. Well, crazy is where I'm at right now. My day My day consists of hopping back and forth from campus to campus and maybe going and catching the kids' baseball game after work. And it's really, really busy, and I don't have a lot of time, but I just, even like here today, I don't have time to be here. I'm such a busy person. But I couldn't say no, because I think adult education is so big and it's so life-changing, and I just want to share it with everybody. How big it's been for me, and it can be for everybody else. So now I'm taking classes at UGA in math, German, and engineering while I'm teaching in electrical systems. And my job is great. I get to pass on all that stuff my adult education teachers taught me how to study and stuff, and pass that on to my students. In a few years, adult education transformed me from a high school dropout to a college instructor, where I get to help students reach their goals, build better lives, and also enrich their local economies and communities. So why is adult education so important? Because it benefits everybody. Thank you.